This is our agenda for tonight's session on thinking about running for office. I've got some welcome slides just to lay groundwork. I'll provide some prompts and things to think about if you're considering running, what some types of things you can expect, first types of questions or tasks you might need to work on. And along the way, and especially here at the end, I will share some additional resources. So, as we jump into these welcome slides, I wanted to tell you my goal as I was developing this content. So, the goals are for Democrats who are considering running for office to start learning about what it takes. I work for the Democratic Party. We provide a lot of support to Democrats running for office. There are also sometimes circumstances when people who are running in nonpartisan races who are aligned with the Democratic Party values are candidates that we work with. So I just want to throw that out there. And then the other goal is for NCDP, for me, for my colleagues to share information to help people make a decision about next steps if they're considering running. What this session is the first step of many. Now, maybe you have been considering running for office already. Maybe it's not your first step, it's your second or your third. But the key point here is that this session is not comprehensive. You're not going to, in 1 hour, learn everything you need to know to run a campaign and win an election. But hopefully, I'll be able to share information for people who are still in the deciding phase to help you make up your mind, have a better sense of what is involved. Also, I never want to be a gatekeeper of this information. So maybe you are, for whatever reason, a non-traditional candidate. Maybe other people have told you don't run. I'm not going to tell anybody not to run. Doesn't mean you're going to win. And it might be harder for some people than for others. When I ran and lost my city council race, one of the things that I heard is people tend to have better luck on their second election. You've got more skills and you've got your name out there a bit more. So anyhow, this is the first step of what is probably many for you as you consider this. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I'm going to share a lot of information and resources. You don't have to hit a home run on every single piece of information I share. I don't expect you to have answers to all of the questions and prompts that I'm going to share tonight. That doesn't mean you shouldn't continue to move forward with this idea of running for office. Start wherever you are. We just this past election, we saw a state Supreme Court seat, Justice Allison Riggs. She has won her election by 734 votes, maybe it is. That's a statewide race being run by won by 700 votes. So start where you are. Any starting point is a good one, and we will help you along the way. Now, Mackenzie is going to share a couple of her thoughts about why it's so important that we get to spend this time with you, encouraging people to run for office.
Yeah. Thank you again for joining. I'm just reading through all your thoughtful messages in the chat about why you're here. Some people have sent me private messages about what's motivating them. And I think that is the thing that I really want to highlight tonight. Obviously, we know that municipal races tend to have lower turnout. So that's where you can stand to make the most gains when we're talking about power building and building out our bench. But I think the most important thing for me when I'm talking to folks who are curious about running and just interested in learning more is especially in a municipal year, that is stuff that directly affects us in our backyard, right? Running for city council, running for some school boards. I know municipalities have school board races, your board of commissioners, like those folks are making decisions that affect your day-to-day life. I'm a first-time homeowner. I have a mortgage now. And my property tax just increased a little bit. And who can I go to wag my finger at but the county commission? And these things are really important. A lot of stuff at the local level gets snuck on through. And people sometimes are none the wiser until it blows up in the General Assembly or even becomes a national issue. So I really encourage folks to consider your why the fact that you're here lends me to believe that you already kind of have an idea and a motivation. But truly, I think running for any office, much less local office as a city councilor, is the best way to take care of your community and show that you are loving on people and you are doing the hard work of fighting for justice at the most basic level you can go. And I think that's really important. We need more people who are representative of what the communities around us actually look like, right? People who are working regular 9 to 5 jobs, who have kids in the school system, who are actual members of communities who have a vested interest in what positive growth looks like in all ways. So that I could talk about it for a long time, y'all. This is my favorite thing to do, but I'll leave it there.
Ooh, there we go. Thank you, Mackenzie. And I was happy to let you keep going because it gave me a chance to get caught up on the chat. A little hard for me to read the chat while I present, but there were so many fantastic comments in there. And thank you all again for being here, for being interested in this, whether it's for yourself, whether you're supporting somebody else, if you're a first timer, if it's your second or third time, whether you want to run in 2025's municipal elections this year, or if you're thinking a little further down the road, or you're thinking a little bit of higher office. Thank you for being here. We know our democracy does not run on autopilot. And we need good people who represent our values to lead us with a strong vision for a better North Carolina. So thank you for being here. I'm going to talk next about some things, some questions for you to think about, thought starters. But I'm going to pause real quick and see if there are any questions at this point. I think I'm caught up on the chat. Mackenzie or Sarah, did you see anything in particular? Oh, I did see one question. Does the Democratic Party ever endorse in nonpartisan races? And yes, the Democratic Party does. I think for the municipal elections, that probably happens at the county level. But the state party will be providing some resources for candidates running for office this year. Sarah Mackenzie, if you have a clearer answer, feel free to chime in. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. Okay. There are 4 key questions that are kind of a standard set of questions you might hear about when anybody's thinking about running for office, whether it's higher office, whether it's starting out school board, town council, things like that. Questions are why you, why now, why this race, and do you have support? These are good questions for you to take some time after today's session to think about it. Think about it when you're in your commute. Think about it when you're doing your journaling, as you're planning, whatever. Um, but when it comes to the question of why you, couple things to ask yourself. Why are you the right person to run? Why should people vote for you? Why will they want to vote for you? Do you bring something to the office that is unique? Maybe a perspective that is lacking. Maybe you're part of an underrepresented group that needs a seat at the table. Do you have a unique or compelling vision for how that office would be better served, the public would be better served by your leadership? So why you? Why now? And I saw various answers in the chat, whether it's 2015 elect 2025, oh my God, 2025 elections, 2026, or some future date. Whatever that timing is for you, I saw somebody said that they were considering it before and the time wasn't right, and now the timing is right and they're locked and loaded. So, what is the right timing for you personally? What is the right timing for you politically? Is there something happening that makes you want to take this action now? What is driving your timing decision? Why this race? And maybe you don't know yet exactly what seat you want to run for or what's even possible. And I have a resource I'll share on that I forgot to put on a slide. But um, once you know what race you are running or the various races you are considering, why that race? Is it an open seat? So, for example, if the incumbent is retiring or leaving office for whatever reason, and then it's considered an open seat, it can generally be considered an easier race to win versus challenging an incumbent. Maybe there's an incumbent and they're doing a particularly bad job. And so you think I could do better. This is the race for me to get involved in. And again, maybe you have a unique set of skills or experiences that that office needs or that your community needs. The final in this um, series of questions is, do you have support? Running for office, I found to be exhausting and inspiring and eye-opening and thrilling. And to be honest, a teeny tiny bit glamorous, especially looking from the outside. When people started recognizing me at the grocery store, I was like, well, that's kind of cool. Um, there will be people who are close to you who disappoint you. There will be people who you've never met before who will become your strongest supporter. It's full of surprises. I'm getting a little emotional because it is just an amazing experience. And while I didn't win, I would absolutely go back in time and do it again. I'm not going to do it again in the future, but I would go back in time and do it again. So it is grueling. It is time consuming. It can be all consuming. So think about if you have support. This will be harder to do if your family thinks you shouldn't do it, if your friends aren't supportive, if your romantic partner is not on board. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but it will be a little bit more difficult. Do you have support from your employer? Do you have the kind of employer who you need to notify? If you work, for example, in government, you might have to notify your employer. Do you have flexibility at work? Or are you going to have a really strict boss looking for any excuse, any text about the campaign to get you in trouble? That'll make it harder. Do you have support from your community, however you define your community, whether it's your church group, your book club, your child's soccer team parents, whatever support, whatever community means to you, are people supportive and on board? Because it will make it easier. Not a reason to not do it, but it will make it easier. I happen to see a question in the chat. Um, I think somebody said they were, how do we, sorry, Joe, how do we attract candidates to want to run? I am doing another session on Monday with Lead NC, which is another politically minded organization in North Carolina. And in partnership with them, we have a session next Monday on how to identify and recruit people to run for office. So, Mackenzie or Sarah, if you have a chance to find that on Mobilize and drop the link, otherwise, I will be sure to include it in the follow-up email. Okay, so those four questions, super important. And I could go deeper on all of them, but in the interest of time, we're going to move on here and talk about some logistics. If you are considering running in 2025, here are some pieces of information you want to round up real quick. And I have some resources to share for how you can find it out. One thing about 2025 in our municipal elections this year in North Carolina They don't all necessarily fall on the same day. The first Tuesday in November will be a big day, and a lot of municipalities will have their elections that day, but not all of them. So, first thing you need to do is find out what is the date of the election for the seat that you're interested in, especially if you're interested in 2025. Is there a primary? Sometimes there is, sometimes there is not. I wish I could give you more clear answers, but with 100 counties kind of all doing their municipal elections a little differently, there's a broad range of answers. For most counties, most municipal races, the deadline to file, so submit paperwork that says, yes, I want to run, is going to be this period here in July. But again, check the dates of your election that you're interested in. Check when the filing deadline is for that race. Are there filing fees? Probably. Are there any signature requirements? When I ran, I had to have 20 registered people in the district sign a document saying that, yes, they supported me running for office, for example. So those are some logistical questions to look into pretty quickly. If you're looking ahead to 2026, um, at the municipal level, some municipalities will have their elections in 26, maybe Wake County. Um, if you're interested in running for North Carolina State Assembly, I think I saw somebody in the chat. The deadline to file to run in 2026 for State House, State Senate, that filing period will happen this year in December. So if you're thinking about running in 2026, there's a March primary date. Tuesday, November 3rd, 2026 is the election. The filing deadline would be this December. So if you're thinking ahead, keep that in mind. Now, here is the resource I want to share with you so that you can look for that information. And Mackenzie or Sarah, if you could drop this link in the chat if you're in the slide doc. So the North Carolina State Board of Elections has a candidate resources page. I've got a screenshot of it here. I will also email this when I send out the follow-up email tomorrow. You can see things here like terms of office, what are the filing periods. As we get closer to those filing deadlines, you will have the actual forms that you would fill out. That information will be on this website. So we talked a little bit when I was asking why you, why the seat, why now, but what is the state of the race? That is a phrase that you might hear a lot as you think about planning to run for office. What is the state of the race? Is it an open seat, or will you be challenging an incumbent? Are you challenging an incumbent who is the same party as you or who is a different party? Those answers could lead to different strategies, different tactics, different approaches to your race. So none of them is a don't run if you can't answer a certain way. It's just that how you answer might determine how you plan your campaign. First time candidates do have a little bit of a harder road in general. You might not have name recognition. You might not have developed these skills yet that you're going to need to run for office, but you'll pick them up pretty fast. What are the demographics of the district, of the seat you're looking to run for? Party breakdown, Democrat, Republican, non-affiliated, age, race, gender, religion. How does the voter registration look? Are most people 18 plus registered? Are there people in this district who tend to move around a lot and might need to update their voter registration? This might be a part of your campaign plan, especially if you're thinking ahead to 2026. Maybe you lay groundwork by making sure you're getting people who support you registered to vote this year to support your election next year. Look at the history of recent elections for that race. What is the average turnout, the average win margins? So turnout would be, there are 10,000 registered voters in your town in a 2025, which would be called like an off year election. You're probably going to see turnout rates, I don't know, 18%. Like it's going to be low. This election we just had, which had all of our state house, state senate, US House, president, that had a higher turnout rate. I don't know offhand what that was. I don't know, 60, 70%, something like that. It's going to be a lot lower in 2025. But look at the past several elections. I might go back 4 years, 8 years, 12 years to get a sense of what those patterns look like. The win margin is whoever won the seat, how many votes did they win by? Has it been blowouts? Has it been close races? Um, that will also help inform your strategy, and it might depend. Maybe you're in a real purple district and maybe they're always close, and sometimes Democrats win and sometimes Republicans win, and the seat turns over a lot. That's going to be a different approach to your campaign than if it is an open seat. The previous person had it for 40 years and now they're retiring and like it's a free for all. It's just going to be different dynamics. Some research tools to get the kind of information I was just talking about. And I've got screenshots here. I can share these in the follow-up email as well. For basic demographic information, you can just use Wikipedia to look for your town or your county and get some demographic information. I use Ballotpedia a lot. If you're, particularly if you're going to be interested in a state house, state assembly, state senate race, you will probably find the history of that race on Ballotpedia. I would suggest, and the link I have here is going to North Carolina 2025 elections. The content is thin right now, but as we get closer to the election, there'll be more robust information. You might say, I'm going to run for the state assembly seat in my district. I live in Holly Springs, and the incumbent is Erin Pare. I could look Erin Pare up on Ballotpedia, and I could probably see her previous elections and how many people voted, what the margin was. And then Google. This screenshot here, I just Googled, I think what I put in was Holly Springs, North Carolina government elections or something. And it pulled up the official website for Holly Springs, and you can see there is a link for the mayor and town council. Go right there. You can see who is running the town now, some information about them, their party affiliation, possibly, depending on where you are. And that's another good place to do a little bit of research. When you figure out who has the seat now, follow them on social, keep up on what they're doing as part of your research. Some more logistics. Think about these tasks that you're going to want to take care of as soon as you file your paperwork and you're official. You're going to want a campaign committee, so you'll need to give your campaign a name. There are some guidelines. It's usually something like year, seat, your name. So Christy Boer for Union City District 3, 2023. You'll need a campaign bank account. You want to keep the money that you're receiving, the donations that you're receiving, even if they're coming from you. You want to keep track of that and the money that you're spending. You want to keep track of that separate from how you're paying your rent or your mortgage and groceries. So a separate bank account. Depending on where you work, there might be a requirement to tell your employer. And you will need a treasurer to handle your financial filings. This is the glamorous part of politics right here. Uh, Campaign finance filings. What we have for you, though, is a resource, the North Carolina Board of Elections campaign finance resources page, a lot of information. There are financial requirements for reporting the money that you receive in donations and how you spend it. So, good resource there. And you might be able to get some advice from your county party on who they know who can help be treasurer for your campaign. Sticking on the subject of money, you're going to raise money and you're going to spend money. When it comes to raising money to fund your campaign, how much will you need to raise? This is something you might find some information on things like Ballotpedia. You might be able to ask your county party. You can certainly Google campaign finance reports to find information, but how much have people raised in the past? Did they win or did they lose? And again, I would look at like a 4 or maybe even an 8 year history if possible to see what those trends have been. If it is the entrenched incumbent who's been in that seat for 40 years, they might not be spending much because they have really high name recognition. Also, our campaign financing system is broken, in my opinion. So I don't want anyone to think that money necessarily leads to wins. You could have a scrappy campaign where you have a lot of community support, and maybe those people don't have a lot of money to donate to you, but they've got time. And you can absolutely run a bare bones shoestring campaign. Again, more money helps, but it's not the end all be all. Will you be able to donate to your own campaign? One thing that's really important is that if you can help finance some of your campaign expenses, you don't want to intermingle that with your personal funds. So going back to having a campaign bank account, keep that separate. But will you be able to contribute to your own campaign? Who are you going to ask to donate to your campaign? Do you have a robust Rolodex of people you can call through and say, hey, can you donate $10? Can you donate $100? One tip I've heard is think about how much money that person might spend if they took you to dinner for your birthday. Maybe they're not a I'm going to take you to dinner for your birthday kind of friend. Maybe they're a I'm going to buy you a beer for your birthday kind of friend. Whatever that dollar amount is, ask for that. Also, when you're looking at the Board of Elections, the campaign finance website, are there limits to how much can be donated? This is the kind of thing that you will get a lot more information on as you move through the process of deciding to run. You're also going to need to track those donations and track how you spend your money. There are certainly tools and resources. And if you're thinking, I'm going to run for a state Senate seat and I'm going to need to raise and spend $750,000, like you might want a robust tool. If you're saying I'm going to run for school board and I think I can run and a good campaign and I can win on $4,000, use a Google Sheet. That would probably be fine. When it comes to spending money, a couple of categories of your most likely expenses here are actually getting the voter roll. So this is the list of who is registered to vote, which you're going to want so that you know who to talk to. This is a resource that there will be information later this year. The state party may be able to provide this resource to candidates so that you don't have to pay for it yourself. But if you are anxious to get started and you're good with data, you can probably buy the voter roll from your county board of elections for a nominal fee. I don't know, $75-ish maybe. Your county Democratic Party might also be able to help you with some information here until you get your own account. The tool that the state party and most Democrats around the country use is called Vote Builder, or it might also be called VAN, VAN, the Voter Activation Network. So if you hear those terms, that's the database that we use to slice and dice the list of voters so we know who to talk to. You will probably want a website. You will want campaign social media accounts and campaign email accounts, perhaps. Um, a big bucket of how your time and money is likely to be spent is probably actually talking to voters, direct voter contact. So whether you're knocking doors, you're making phone calls, you're sending text messages, um, talking directly to voters, it's going to help move the needle for you. So that will be a good amount of your time and your money. Direct mail, so sending flyers in the mail, that might be the single biggest expense for somebody running a municipal race. If you send a couple of mailers, and you might also have paid advertising. This is probably going to look like boosted social media posts, um, depending on the type of race you're running. Okay, I'm losing my voice. So I'm going to pause here and take some questions. Mackenzie or Sarah, are there questions in the chat we should talk about?
A couple of these are campaign finance flavored questions, Christy. Someone says, I don't have plans to immediately run right now, but I'd like to begin building my war chest. Is that allowed, or how does that work?
This is not the area where I have ever had a professional job, so I don't know as much as I know on some other areas. When you say war chest, though, what I'm wondering is if that's somebody who's going to run a big race. I'm going to run for state assembly. Um, if you're running for a school board race and usually the candidates spend about $4,000, I don't think of that as building a war chest situation. Um, so
I will add, can I chime in?
yes, please.
All right. So as soon as you acquire money towards a campaign, you have performed your first campaign activity and you need to have an official bank account, which means that you open a campaign committee with the State Board of Elections or your County Board of Elections, and you start reporting your money in and money out. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to run, and you can name your committee anything. So we're not a state that has like exploratory committees, but you could put that in the name. You can name it like Friends of so-and-so and, like keep it kind of general, although you do have to specify what office you're interested in on the form. So you can kind of like start the process of fundraising earlier than your plan to run, but if you are actually acquiring money, you do have to have a proper bank account. That's it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Nope. Oh no, you're good. I was gonna hop back into the chat. Christy, what were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to admit that when I ran for office and when I managed a campaign, I was in California. So that's where my campaign finance knowledge lies.
A little different. Isaac. Oh, hi, Isaac. Cabarrus County and the house friends. Isaac asks, is there a limit on how much money an individual can donate? Is it US citizen only? As far as I know, yes, US citizen only. And there is a cap. And I think it actually just increased, Sarah, to 6,400.
That's the number I was thinking too.
I think it's 64.
Or now it's 64.
Oh no. It's absurdly high. But you can find that information on the State Board of Elections website too. And I can put a link in there in a minute.
And I'll just add to that. Some municipalities also have their own campaign finance caps. Where I live, there's a fairly low cap if you're running for municipal office. I think it's like $357. So there are some places that want to keep money out of politics somewhat, and so they have enacted their own regulations about that.
And then another question about whether the state Senate or House caucus help people who are running in those specific legislative races.
Yeah, so the Senate and House caucuses do some candidate recruitment and support. State party does as well. If that's what you're interested in, when I send the follow-up email, let me know and I can pass along your information. Okay. I don't think I'm going to lose my voice. Difference between a PAC and a campaign account. A PAC would be for PACs. I'm going to share some resources that will help, particularly with these campaign finance questions. So let me put a pin in that. And resources to determine the best way to spend money is like, yeah, that's the big question in politics, right? Sarah shared one resource, so you could take a look at that. Okay, let me share some resources here before I completely lose my voice, and then we can take some more questions. So what I want to share here are next step training programs. I'm gonna have to pause. Hey, Mackenzie, can you read a couple of slides? I'm sorry, I'm completely springing this on you.
No, you're good. All right. Candidate training programs, my friends. We have a lot of training resources that are geared toward candidates, especially first time and or down ballot candidates. And this is kind of your introduction to that. Just the general, we're not pushing you off the diving board yet, but we're giving you an idea. There are also other organizations that offer introductory and intermediate going up the ladder types of trainings. And the gist is you can pick one or any of them and use their tools and figure out, kind of mix and match the things that are going to be best for you and the campaign you're trying to run. Am I still on? I saw you on mute.
No, I appreciate you vamping for me. And I'm recording this session and now I'm like, I'm gonna have to record the next one too because I got all choked up. Thank you, Mackenzie.
You're fine.
Okay, so I've got a couple specific organizations and I'll share links. I mentioned that we're partnering with Lead NC on some candidate training this year. Lead NC is a nonpartisan leadership development program with democratic leaning values. They have a couple of workshops coming up, and I think I'm going to be helping deliver some of that training. They do kind of two different types of training. There is Ready to Lead for people who are very seriously considering running. This is more of an intro session. Ready to Lead, it's a full day. And these are coming up March 22nd in Rocky Mount, April 6th in Concord, 7th, 8th, and June 23rd and 24th will be on Zoom. When I send the follow-up email, I will include a link for you to get more information about those. Then they have their Get Elected workshop, and this is for people who have filed to run, and that is coming up August 9th. Ugh. Sorry. Okay, NDTC, the National Democratic Training Committee, fantastic resource. They do live trainings on Zoom. And I've got a sampling here at the bottom of the page here. Let's see what they've got coming up. Planning your fundraising strategy, field tactics, what is get out the vote, how to develop your GOTV universe, a lot of jargon in there, but that's a sample of some of the live trainings that they're doing in the next like 10 days. They also have an extensive collection of previously delivered trainings that you can access at your own pace. I used a lot of their trainings and their templates I used their budgeting templates, I used their fundraising and call time templates. And the way I used NDTC is I would try to self-serve and use the information online. And when I got to a point where now I'm confused halfway through or whatever, I could take the live session, and hearing somebody walk through it sometimes got me unstuck. You do have to request access to NDTC and check a box that says, yes, I am a Democrat. Um, and requests, I don't know that I don't think they're automatically approved. Like it takes a little bit of time, but at least once a week they go through and approve that. Fantastic resource. IOPL, North Carolina's Institute of Political Leadership. They have a fellows program that trains on campaign strategy and tactics. Their training is in cohorts, so small groups of 10 to 20 people. We will share information on that, particularly if you're thinking like, hey, in 2026, I want to run for state assembly. That might be a program for you to really look into. Emily's List is focused on helping Democratic pro-choice women win election. Again, a bunch of online templates and toolkits. They have an introductory 7-part online training curriculum, Run to Win, campaign management, fundraising, communications, digital, field, paid media. So I've just barely touched on most of those topics. This is a 7-part series that goes into more depth. There's also Lillian's List, and this is for progressive pro-choice women. A couple of things coming up here. They have, and it's February 4th. Some people are still planning their 2025 activities, but this is an advance heads up that this summer they will have the Engaging Women of Color leadership training. And they also have Get Local leadership training and future candidate training coming up. So those are some good resources beyond us at the state party. I do have a training calendar, and I'll share this with you in the follow-up email that lists all the upcoming trainings I am hosting. I also have a training library. This is a screenshot here. It's a spreadsheet that lists all the trainings that I've held in the past year plus in the North Carolina Democratic Party. What does the agenda look like? Who is the training helpful for? And then links to YouTube videos and PDF versions of the slides. I think that's a good resource to search for key words or maybe flip through and see if some of those jump out to you. Then I do have a playlist of videos on YouTube, and I will share that link tomorrow as well. I don't think I'm choked up on any of those videos, but you can watch me at double speed so you can get through it faster. That might be fun. And then Sarah, do you want to give a quick pitch for your team?
Absolutely. I have the best team. We are very excited. The North Carolina Democratic Party is doing something new this year. We have kept on our organizing team, our full strength of 5 regional organizers, all of whom have lived in their regions for multiple cycles and are deeply invested in the local county parties and volunteers. And so Mackenzie is our Piedmont West regional organizer down in Cabarrus County. We've also got Daniel Franch in the Piedmont East, Jabaris Walker in the Northeast, Bishop McNeil in the Southeast, and Michael Creccia manages the entire western part of the state. And we're here as a resource for Democratic candidates running this year. And so we are really excited to work with you. We have office hours every Thursday at 3 o'clock. It's a great time to go with general questions, and then we can follow up with one-on-ones as you start to think your way through this and wondering what the Democratic Party can do and how do you cut turf and how do you pull a list, and those are the things that we're really good at doing. So we're a resource for you. Please reach out, and either Mackenzie or I will drop all of our contact information in the chat.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, I'm going to stop my recording. I am definitely